Okay, I better take the old register, boys. Michael, Richard, Adam, Stephen, Holly. Has anyone seen Holly, boys? Is Holly on here? She's committed suicide? What a very silly girl. There's no way, Jose, she's going to get an A star or even A in her GCSE Spanish to commit suicide. I mean, this is year 11. This is the year of her real GCSEs. And I would argue that getting your GCSEs, and particularly your GCSE Spanish, is completely incongruous with committing suicide. What's going on there, boys? Anyway, James, Melissa. Where's Melissa, boys? She's not here either. What's going on with all the girls, boys? Melissa's at home, very deeply depressed, thinking of committing suicide. What is the matter with these Year 11 girls today, boys? What's going on? I am here trying to teach you Spanish, and all I get is Year 11 girls saying that they are committing suicide or thinking of committing suicide. I've had enough. If I find another girl thinking of committing suicide in my class, she's going to have to go and stand at the back of my class for the whole lesson, because that's it. I don't want to see her face, because she really is. Right. Marcus, Kieran, Ivy. What's the matter? What did you say? You want to commit suicide? En español. Señor. Oh, you really are. It's señor. Quiero suicidarme, por favor. Sí. En mi oficina. A la izquierda. Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Jolly Heretic. Now, today I would like to talk about shocking news of the rising suicide rate among young British girls who are 16 years old. And I would like to talk about why this is happening, and I'd like to use this as a segue into understanding the evolutionary dynamics of suicide. Why is it that the propensity to commit suicide has stayed in the population? So, jolly stuff, but before that, a word from our sponsor. Well, first, a word from our sponsor. Now, we are all truth seekers here at the Jolly Heretic Public House, but here's the problem, chaps. We can only get to the truth if we have multiple perspectives, if we have multiple interpretations, if we have access to the other side, if we have access to all viewpoints. Only then can we really understand what's going on in the world, and we are increasingly finding that we cannot do that. Information is blocked, websites are blocked, alternative perspectives are blocked, and so the only way round this, realistically, is some form of VPN. And as far as I can see, Atlas VPN gives you everything you can possibly need. There is currently a Steel Black Friday deal going on in which you can get Atlas VPN Premium for just $1.70 per month plus 6 months extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. This is the best VPN offer Atlas have ever done, and it's a time-limited offer, so it's time to get on with it, chaps. There are all kinds of benefits to Atlas VPN. It's as I say, there's this offer of just this brilliant offer. You can unlock your favourite content from all over the world. If you can't access your favourite program or whatever, your Atlas VPN has got you covered. You can keep your Google searches secret and private using Atlas VPN. You can stop ads and malware. You can save money online. It will give you get you the best deals while shopping online, and it will all that kind of stuff. And you can protect unlimited devices using Atlas VPN. As I say, there is a fantastic offer on at the moment in which it's just $1.70 a month plus 6 months extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So this really is the cheapest and best way to get a VPN. We increasingly need VPNs. The truth is blocked. The truth is covered up. We can't get access to information. And in a society that's doing this to us, we need a VPN. And as far as I can see, Atlas VPN is where it's at, chaps. Okay, and we're back in the room. Right, now, there's a recent research which has been published, and it's reported in the newspapers today, which finds that, on British research, it looked at a large sample of young people in Year 11, over 69,000 people in Year 11. And it found the following, that 44% of children in Year 11, that is to say children who are 16 years old, are probably mentally ill and are probably suffering from things such as depression. This is a very substantial increase, but this is based on from 2021, because in 2007, when they did the same survey, it was only 23%. So basically, we have a doubling, or more or less a doubling, in the last 15 years. Now, this is much more pronounced among schoolgirls. 11% of schoolgirls, Year 11, 16-year-old schoolgirls, have attempted to commit suicide. So obviously this is very, very significant. Among schoolgirls, it is 54% who appear to be depressed, year 11, 23% who self-harm, and 11% who have attempted to commit suicide. Among year 11 boys, 33% appear to be depressed, 11% have engaged in self-harm, cutting themselves and things like that, and 5% have attempted to commit suicide. So obviously something very serious is going on, and school children are becoming increasingly depressed over time. Now, I've looked in other videos at why we're becoming depressed over time, and I've suggested that a big part of it is an evolutionary mismatch, and I suggest that that's what's going on here, and I'll look at that in a minute. But before I look at that, I want to look at the evolution of suicide. The kind of people who commit suicide in the UK and elsewhere in the West have changed. Before the 1970s, it was old men. Old men who were single, who were bachelors, who were poor, who had no friends or whatever, who became completely socially isolated because old men are better at becoming socially isolated, and they would tend to kill themselves. In the 1970s, it changed to being young men. Now, first of all, why is it different among people in year 11, people aged 16? Well, the answer is that as you get older, your level of conscientiousness, that is to say your impulse control, goes up. Your level of agreeableness, that is to say your altruism and whatever, goes up. And your level of neuroticism, that is to say feeling negative feelings strongly, and mental instability goes down, with the exception of a blip at about your sort of mid to late teens, early 20s, when conscientiousness goes down, impulse and agreeableness goes down, and neuroticism, that is to say feeling negative feelings strongly, things such as depression, anxiety, and all kinds of unpleasant stuff, goes up. Now, this happens earlier in women, because women go through puberty earlier than men for sound evolutionary reasons. The reason being because it is adaptive for women to sexually select for status. Older men are more likely to have status, so age is a marker of status, and if they go through puberty younger, then they will be more likely to get pregnant by older men who have higher status, and therefore in prehistory their children will be more likely to survive. But anyway, the result of this, of course, is that at 16, the girls are much more depressed and whatever than are the boys. Now, women are higher, girls are higher in conscientiousness and higher in agreeableness and higher in neuroticism than boys anyway, like just overall, this is the case. But there is the particular problem for them at that age with mental illness and so forth. So that's why they become terribly, terribly depressed at that age to a much lesser extent than boys. It's been suggested that the reason for this is that boys, when they go through that phase, it allows them to break with the household, to strike out and start their new household, that sort of thing. And also that's the kind of age where they'll be funneled into fighting wars in prehistory, and they'll be better at it if they feel negative feelings strongly, including things like anger and whatever, and if they're impulsive and generally nasty. Girls at that kind of age, in particular with regard to depression, this is the kind of age where they will be having children and so forth, and finding partners. So it's a very good idea for them to feel negative feelings strongly, so they don't end up with the wrong man. So they're very, very careful and so forth. And if they do get a man, then they're high in neuroticism and anxiety, and it makes them concerned and anxious and want to look after the child. So we are in basically an evolutionary mismatch, which is that in prehistory, it was adaptive to have these feelings at this point, because what we were doing was fighting in the army or having children or whatever, and now we're not doing that. We're at school. And so it's at where there is a premium on conscientiousness, agreeableness, and mental stability, because these things tend to be overall associated with doing better in exams, and so it's completely maladaptive, evolutionary mismatch, and a serious problem. We are in the wrong place, and it causes emotional dysregulation, and it makes us unhappy. Anyway, now, the evolution of suicide then. What is found is that the kind of men who commit suicide are low in conscientiousness and low in agreeableness, i.e. they are impulsive and they are aggressive. Other factors which are relevant are things like early trauma and obviously psychiatric issues that hit in, things such as depression and anxiety and whatever, which make them feel that life is hopeless and pointless and they might as well kill themselves. The genetic component to suicide is high, or high-ish, and the reason for that is that the genetic component to the kinds of personality traits that are associated with suicide is high. So the heritability of suicide in modern samples has been found to be something like 0.43. Now, what is the reason for suicide? Well, why does it stay in the population? It's a little bit like talking about homosexuality. It's a conundrum. Homosexuality shouldn't stay in the population. I've looked in other videos, and you'll find them on Bitchute and Odysee, on the evolutionary dynamics of homosexuality. But let's look at the evolutionary dynamics of suicide. There are three reasons. One, suicide is some kind of adaptation. Two, there is a byproduct to suicide, to suicidality. So it is a byproduct of something that is an adaptation, so it stays in the population. Or three, it's just evolutionary noise, it's things going wrong, it's an evolutionary mismatch, it's that sort of thing, and so whatever. So what is going on here? What could be the reason for suicide? Well, if we look at societies that are in an evolutionary match, so we are evolved, remember we're animals, we are evolved to be in a certain environment, and if we are in that certain environment, then we have a sense of happiness and regulation and contentment. We are regulated emotionally. Now, an example of such a group would be the Inuit. The traditional Inuit are hunter-gatherers. They're living in hunter-gatherer ecologies, and so they're basically very happy. However, in those hunter-gatherer ecologies, and field work on them has found that at certain points, elderly people will voluntarily commit suicide, and that this is considered to be an altruistic thing to do. They will say, I'm going to kill myself, there's not enough food, it's in the interest of all of us that I kill myself, this will be accepted by the band, and they will kill themselves. And this is considered to be an extremely altruistic thing to do. So this is the first reason then why suicidal behaviour might stay in the population, because remember, we pass on our genes directly by having children and so forth, but we also pass on our genes indirectly. So by ensuring that our children survive, not only that our children survive, but that our extended family survive, that our cousins survive, that our brothers and sisters survive, and whatever, and so forth. So this kind of idea. And so it would follow that certain kinds of very altruistic people would say that I am a burden on my people, I am no good, my life is pointless anyway, I'm a burden, I can't produce, I can't help, I'm going to bring you all down, and therefore I will do the right thing and kill myself so that you can all survive, and therefore my genes will survive. And so this follows that when people get into a situation where they conclude that their life is pointless, where they conclude that they are a burden, basically, where they conclude they are a burden on their community, then they will kill themselves, and that propensity will stay in the population, because the population where people who are burdensome come to the conclusion that they should kill themselves will be more likely to survive than one where people sort of selfishly hang on and don't really contribute and are dead wood. So that's the first reason, that's the first possibility. Now that would of course fit with the fact that in times of war, in World War I, you would have people that would just throw themselves at the enemy. They would people who were young men who hadn't passed on their genes yet, who would lay down their lives, who would be killed for the good of their group. Again, well, they're not saying they're burdens, but it's a situation where you realise that your group is under attack. Your group might die out, and you can do something to ensure your genetic fitness, your extended fitness, which is to lay down your life for your group so that your group survives and your genes are passed on. So that would be the first reason then, that it would be some sort of altruistic act. And there are other subsections of this that would work in terms of altruistic acts. For example, martyrdom. This is another example of laying down your life for your group. Now, why would you lay down your life for your group? Well, as a martyr, well, one possibility is that it inspires your group. It makes your group more likely to fight. It makes your group more likely to feel that God is on their side. It therefore makes your group more likely to be high in positive and negative ethnocentrism, and it therefore makes your group more likely to dominate the other group. Or it's a way of sending a message out to the opposing group that we are so certain of our cause that we're prepared to die for it, and this could be intimidating for them and whatever. And so it could be some sort of military kind of idea. And so for that reason, again, so as a group adaptive trait, suicidality in certain circumstances, such as when your group is under attack, such as when your group's ideas are under attack, or such as when your group is poor and you perceive yourself as a burden, could stay in the population. Now, the problem with this, as a general explanation, is that the research on the kind of people who, the men anyway, who do kill themselves indicates that they are not like this at all. They are the opposite of this. They are high in impulse control and they are low in agreeableness. They are aggressive, unpleasant, impulsive, nasty sort of people. So that means raises another possibility: suicide as a gamble, as a cry for help. Now, the vast majority of suicide attempts are non-fatal. So what you have then is a situation where you are a person who wants help, a person who screams at society, help me, do things for me, look after me, help me out of my situation. And so you attempt to commit suicide, and as I say, as long as it doesn't go completely wrong, you will survive it, because most people do survive their suicide attempts. So this could be seen as a form of victim signalling, that you elicit help from like crying. You elicit help from the society by making it very, very clear that you are an extreme victim and you are extremely unhappy and all this sort of thing, and therefore they help you. Now, there's research that's found by et al, which has found that victim signaling, signaling that you're terrible victim, correlates with Machiavellianism. It correlates with narcissism. So why? Well, because it's one way of attaining power and attaining status. Is you signal your victimhood, then this appeals to people's moral foundations, that their desire that both conservatives and liberals have for equality and harm avoidance, and therefore you get what you want. So it's a Machiavellian thing to do, and it's a narcissistic thing to do, in the sense that as a narcissist you will feel that you deserve power and prestige and all this sort of thing, and it's a way of obtaining it. But if you are high in neuroticism, if you are high in negative feelings, and of course this very strongly is associated with suicide, that you have depression, you have negative feelings like anger and whatever, and jealousy, but these correlate with other negative feelings, such as depression and anxiety. Then of course in those circumstances you realize, I can victim signal. You feel frightened to overtly play for status and get status that way, and so you do so in a covert kind of way, such as by victim signaling or virtue signaling, and so therefore the unsuccessful suicide is an attempt at eliciting basically favor from others and thus status. And in the case of those that actually kill themselves, it's a risk. You've taken a risk, and the risk has gone wrong. A third reason why suicide could stay in the population is simply certain kinds of parasite. In particular, T. gaudi. Now, this is a parasite which gets into rodents. Now, rodents should be scared of cats. This makes the rodents attracted to cats. The rodents go over to the cats kill the rodents, and then the parasite gets into the cat and it is able to complete its life cycle. Now, it's been suggested that we can get this parasite, and it makes us more impulsive. People that have this parasite are more likely to die in car accidents and things like this. Now, in prehistory, and it makes us more suicidal. Now, in prehistory, it makes us more reckless. In prehistory, the things that would kill us, there would be things like big cats. So it would follow that if we got this parasite, then we'd become reckless. We'd be attracted to big cats, and we'd be killed. We'd basically try and get ourselves killed, and then we get eaten by big cats or whatever because we commit suicide. So this would be how suicidality would stay in the population via this parasite, and you can see how that would then be a heritability to that, because presumably the parasite could be passed down the line or whatever. So that's another possibility. But this is, of course, the thing with that is that it's probably a partly genetic issue, because, as I say, how else could you get these suicides that are altruistic and so forth? So that's another issue. So it's a byproduct then of risk taking and aggression in the sense of this parasite, or in the sense of just taking risk in order to achieve some kind of status or whatever. Now, another thing is that it's basically a byproduct of something adaptive having gone too far. So when something bad happens to you, it can be adaptive, at least if you are living in a circumstance where there's plentiful food and whatever, and you don't have to really, try that hard to live. If something terrible happens to you, it can be adaptive to become very, very sad and completely withdraw. And this, of course, is what happens when you become depressed. You become very, very sad and you completely withdraw. And this allows you to contemplate the bad thing that has happened to you very, very seriously, and to make sure that it never, ever happens again. Now, often when people are suffering from depression, they can't even bring themselves to kill themselves. They might have they might have some sort of suicidal ideation, but it's almost like it's too much effort to bother to kill themselves. It's not it's too much. They can't be buggered. So therefore it's adaptive to become depressed, because in a sense it stops you from killing yourself. Now, what you could have then is this adaptation going wrong, due to the circumstances being so extreme, due to the person being unable to shake themselves out of the depression, such that the negative thoughts and whatever keep going until you want to kill yourself. Another thing would be that it would be adaptive to have basically a low opinion of yourself. In a society, a highly pro-social society, you will get on with other people if you have basically a kind of low opinion of yourself. If you're socially anxious, if you think you're not worth very much, if it makes you humble, it makes you get on with people, it selects for agreeableness and so forth, and therefore you're more likely to pass on your genes. Now, what if that is taken too far? If that is taken to too much of an extreme for some reason, then of course it could result in feeling that life is pointless and life is worthless and you're worth absolutely nothing, and therefore you might as well kill yourself. So you've got this something that is adaptive, which I mentioned with the Inuit, which is having this low opinion of yourself in circumstances where, of course, it's worth laying down your life for society, because otherwise all your family could die, transposed over into the modern world where there is really no reason to do that at all. So it's an evolutionary mismatch. So coming back to what we're getting then with these Year 11 kids, what I strongly suspect you have is something which is adaptive, which is highly adaptive, which is the inclination under certain circumstances to commit suicide. And the inclination under certain circumstances to feel that your life is not worth very much or whatever. Normally that's absolutely fine, because society tells you that your life is worth a great deal and that God is there and God is looking after you. And society tells you that even if your life is rubbish now, it doesn't matter, because ultimately you're put along an evolutionarily adaptive roadmap of life, and God is there for you, and you're part of the group, and the group has an eternal purpose and whatever, and so therefore don't get so upset. And the society puts you in a situation that you're supposed to be in, and this makes you feel happy, and it elevates your mood, and it takes you away from suicidal thoughts. And society certainly doesn't encourage you to think that life is pointless and futile, that has no meaning, and to think that you're a bad person and that you're not worth it. Or if it tells you that you are a bad person, it gives you a way out of it, which is that you ask God or the gods or whatever for forgiveness, and then you'll be forgiven and you'll be a good person. And so society doesn't cause emotional dysregulation, because that's another thing. If you put somebody in an extreme evolutionary mismatch, you cause emotional dysregulation, and therefore these traits, which are adaptive, can go wrong, can go awry, and become maladaptive, and then you will get, among people among whom you wouldn't otherwise get it, suicidal ideation and suicide and other maladaptive behaviours. And it seems to me that's almost certainly why the rise has happened so dramatically among these young kids, because so quickly the new religion, the cult of woke, which tells them that they are bad and tells them that they are evil and encourages them to do maladaptive things and whatever, has taken over and is pushing them in a maladaptive direction and is creating emotional dysregulation. And all but the most psychologically strong of those people, all but the most sort of environmentally insensitive, really, of those people, the most genetically strong of those people, will be emotionally dysregulated by this, and particularly girls, because they're higher in neuroticism anyway at that age, and will be pushed into having suicidal thoughts and all of that sort of thing. So what we're doing is we're placing our children in a cultural situation which is encouraging them, among the ones that I suppose have the highest mutational load or the highest environmental sensitivity, encouraging them to kill themselves. And we have to think, I think, about whether this is a very good idea. So keep your pecker up. Try and stay in an evolutionary match. Try and stay away from things that aren't an evolutionary match. And let's make it through this, chaps. Hello, hello, hello! The Jolly Heretic is an online public house which meets on Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. New York, in which we discuss the kind of based, fearless science which is increasingly expunged from our woke, joke universities. If you would like to help the Jolly Heretic public house, and there are many ways you can do so, please, please, please become one of my patrons on Subscribestar. Also, if you want to, you can donate to the channel using Odysee and Entropy, and you can also purchase Jolly Heretic merchandise, such as shirts and mugs. All of the links are in the description. Again, I'd be most violently grateful if you could assist the Jolly Heretic Public House, and I will see you all soon, and goodbye!